Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Cool Vibes with Key. I'm your host, Kiara, aka Key, and welcome to Season 3. I know Season 2 had a bit of an abrupt ending, but I'm back and better than ever, and hopefully with a slightly more consistent posting schedule. I have taken the time to plan things out a little bit more. But yeah, let's get into it. This week's topic is speaking up for yourself. So, why is speaking up important? Some reasons you might not be speaking up for yourself, how to build your confidence, and finally, when the time comes, how to advocate and speak up for yourself. Now, before we get started, I want to take a second to thank everyone who voted to choose what the topic would be for this opening episode. If you want to help me choose other topics or be involved in some of the polls that I'll post or get just some sneak peek knowledge about the episodes before they come out, head over to my other accounts and I'll have those in the description. I'm excited to have so many good topics picked out for this season, as well as some graphics that I've been working on, so you don't want to miss out. Your input means a lot to me, and I'm really excited to start this season off with speaking up for yourself. It can be difficult, but it's well worth it. Not feeling heard hurts, and it makes it feel like your voice doesn't matter, and like what you say isn't worth it. So let's dive into why speaking up for yourself is even important in the first place. So, why is speaking up for yourself even important in the first place? Well, it leads to personal growth and confidence building. If you don't speak up and you never hear the things you need to hear or don't want to hear but need to hear, you're not going to learn those lessons. It also helps build your confidence because you're interacting with people. Whether it's good, bad, or somewhere in between, you need those interactions to learn to do better next time. And so that kind of ties into the second point of improved communication. You can't get better at talking if you never talk. So speaking up for yourself is vital in working on that self-communication. So how you feel and how you want other people to know how you feel. And finally, personal and professional advancement. If this is in the workplace and you're not speaking up for yourself, you could be missing out. Whether it's a new position, a transition, projects, you could be missing out because you're just not putting yourself out there and saying, hey, this is something I want to do. Or, hey, I don't like how this is going. And of course, personally, you can have friends who you just aren't interacting with in a positive manner, or family members, or any number of things. And that's going to put a strain on your relationship. But it's only going to affect you if you're the only one experiencing these issues. So that's where speaking up for yourself comes into play. Why can't I speak up? That's a question that goes through my head all the time. Why do I feel like I can't speak up for myself in this moment? Now, there's a number of reasons that it could be, whether it's anxiety, I'm scared to put myself out there, or anxiety that you don't want to be the person to rock the boat, whether it's at work or at home, or even anxiety just around conflict in general. Whatever it might be, those are all valid feelings of why you might not be speaking up. But outside of anxiety, you can have the idea of what I have to say isn't worth it. Or you have a low sense of self, where you feel like your ideas or how you feel or what you have to say doesn't matter quite as much as someone maybe with more experience, with more friends in the group, whatever it might be. And of course, there are always cultural factors to look at and acknowledge. Whether you're in a culture where people of lower status, if you're at work, aren't the ones who are supposed to speak out, or even at home, power dynamics that you find yourself often not advocating for yourself because that's just how it is. In moments like those, I find it best to find either a mentor or a peer to talk to. So a lot of that isn't going to be covered in this episode just because there are so many diverse cultural factors that you can run into that might stop you from speaking up for yourself. So if you find yourself in that situation, start talking to other people who might have a similar experience to you. They might have those tips and tricks. They might have something that they did where you're like, wow, that's a really good idea. Why didn't I think of that? So work on that communication, work on that putting yourself out there, and you might get a better answer than what you were expecting. So the first two on the why can't I speak up for yourself kind of touch around the anxiety and just the stressfulness of speaking up for yourself, whether it's anxiety around conflict or about what you have to say or your sense of self-worth. So something that's really important is building your confidence. How do I build that confidence? How do I feel like what I have to say matters? Well, the easiest place to start is surround yourself with people who make you feel like your voice matters. Create that positive support system. You need to hear when you did a good job. You can't just always place that, feedback loop on yourself. Having other people in your life who can acknowledge your accomplishments can help build your confidence and be like, yeah, I have done a good job. The people at work tell me I've done a good job, so why isn't this a good idea? But it all starts with that building that initial support system. The next thing is positive self-talk. Positive self-talk leads to positive self-worth. How you talk to yourself in your head about situations will really affect how you feel about your ability to speak up for yourself. Now, this isn't something that happens overnight. Building your confidence and changing how you talk to yourself takes a lot of time. But the first step in that is acknowledging how you speak to yourself. If you find yourself often saying, this idea is no good, what I have to say doesn't matter, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, you're going to start believing that when it might not necessarily be the case. So in those instances, stop yourself just for a second and think, what if I did say something? The world isn't going to implode if you say something and it's not a good idea. But what it will help is it will help you get it out. So start that small change in how you talk to yourself. And instead of saying, this isn't a good idea, tell yourself, this could be a good idea. And start that conversation. The next step in building your confidence is getting comfortable hearing the words no. You need to get those crazy requests and just say them. Can I have, X, Y, and Z, and just get used to people saying no. Start small. Can you get me a cup of water? Can you hand me that book? Starting the conversations is part of the reason why it's so hard to speak up for yourselves, because we're always afraid of the worst case scenario, which is no, or this isn't a good idea, or whatever the equivalent of that is in the moment. So the more comfortable you are with hearing no and handling that rejection, the more confident you'll be in just saying the ideas that you have. Now, of course, like the others, this is a slow process, but it has to start somewhere, so why not start today? Another important part of building that confidence is learning boundaries. So learning to set those boundaries and then learning to enforce those boundaries. And now there's all kinds of amazing educational resources that you can find to start learning to set those boundaries and enforcing them. That'll also get you more comfortable with hearing things like no. And that'll get you more comfortable with starting the conversations and saying, this is the boundary, this is the outcome. And finally, for building your confidence, especially for the people who have that anxiety of, stirring the pot or not wanting to be the one to cause an issue, is learning the difference between asserting yourself and aggression. Speaking up for yourself isn't aggressive, it's assertive. Now, of course, you can aggressively assert how you feel, but most of the time, the people who are afraid of asserting themselves or speaking up for themselves are not going to be aggressive. Coming at someone aggressively when speaking up for yourself would be to blame them. This is your fault, or this issue that we are having is your fault, and I came up with the solution, or something along that line. You don't want to be hostile, but just speaking up for yourself in general and saying, this is my idea, or I don't like how this made me feel, that's just asserting. Asserting yourself is not aggressive. Do not be afraid to stir the pot, the metaphorical pot. You deserve to be heard and you deserve to be seen. And finally, how do I speak up for myself? That's the whole point of why we're here. So when the time comes and you find yourself having to advocate for yourself, whether it's at work, at home, in school, here are a couple tips and tricks to make things easier. First, speak up early and speak up often. Now, of course, if you're just learning how to speak up for yourself, this is going to be the hardest thing. But asking for feedback and giving feedback regularly helps you speak up for yourself when the time comes when it's really important. So get that feedback. Ask how you're doing. Check in with the people in your life. How do they feel? How do you feel? Is there stuff that you could be doing better? They could be doing better. Just open that line of discussion. So that way, when something is bothering you, the line has already been opened. And if there's a problem, it's already been established. The next tip is document, document, document. We live in a 21st century technology connected world. Get those paper trails going early. Make sure that if you're talking about a meeting, you're sending follow-up notes after. Here's what was discussed. Here were the points that were brought up. If you're doing like a one-on-one with, someone, whether it's personal, professional, or at work, send a little note after. Hey, this is what we talked about. Make sure that you're covering yourself and them if needed. Because the more you document, the easier it is for the next tip, which is escalate when needed. And this is especially true at work and at school. So, you've spoken up early and you've spoken up often. You've had those lines of discussion. You have those documented communications being like, this is what we've talked about. Here's what's been brought up. And you still feel like you aren't being heard. That's when you need to escalate. So if you're at work, that would be bringing in your manager to the conversation, bringing in the other person's manager to the conversation, maybe bringing in HR, if that's a resource that's available to you. Taking those, necessary steps to be like, here is the ongoing issue that I have. I need help. So making sure that you're reaching out to those resources. If you're at school, this could look like, an advisor not doing their job. So let's say, you're working on a paper and your advisor is only reading a certain section of it, and they're giving the same feedback over and over, and you feel like it's not helping. That's when you need to go either to their boss, or if you have an advisor in a different department, go to them, bring them in. Just do what you can to get that next level going. So escalating, it's scary. It really is, but it's definitely necessary. Another tip is keep a level head. Emotions can run high, but keeping that level head will help you get your point across better, succinctly, and just come off as assertive rather than maybe aggressive or over emotional. That level head is also really important to keep yourself calm. If you're trying to, think of all of these different things and how you feel and X, Y, and Z, it can be a lot. And then you're going to start missing the issue at hand. So keeping that level head will keep you grounded and keep you focused. And finally, always make sure in these situations that you are actively listening. So this is both to what, if you're in a group, to what the group is saying, or if you're in a one-on-one, what the other person is saying. Make sure that you are focused on what they are saying and not focused on how you feel or want to respond to what they are saying. This is a skill that takes time to work on, but is a very necessary skill in making sure that you effectively communicate with other people and that you actually hear what they're saying to you. Just like, giving and getting that feedback, it's not going to be useful if you aren't actively listening and you're instead thinking about a million other things. Now, of course, everything here is a process, from the skills to work on your confidence to even speaking up for yourself. But starting that conversation with everyone around you can get you so far. So make sure you are speaking up for yourself. And if you feel like you aren't being heard, make sure you're reaching out to other people, because you deserve to be heard and your voice matters. Thank you, everyone, for joining me for the first episode of Season 3. As a little sneak peek for the next episode, which will be published in 2 weeks, we will be talking about financial health. So the basics, the different kinds, savings accounts, checking account, high yield savings account, a money market account. There's all these different accounts. So what are they? What should I maybe open if, I'm just getting started? I just have a regular bank account. What is that? I'm trying to go through and answer some of those really basic questions that we might not know the answer to. So if you have any questions that you want featured, for that episode, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram or send me a message on LinkedIn. But that's all I have for this week. Thank you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.